They laughed when I said I wanted to buy a house. My dad smirked like it was a bad joke. My mom said, "People like you rent, not own." And Serena, my flawless, darling sister, tilted her head and whispered, "Don't embarrass yourself." She'd just bought the dream villa on Cliffhaven Ridge. She called it her healing palace. She threw parties there and bragged that I wouldn't even qualify to clean it. So I stayed quiet. I worked overtime. I fixed my credit. I waited. Then Serena went bankrupt. And just like that, the villa was up for sale. I bought it. In cash. She didn't know until her real estate agent called and said, "It's gone." A week later, my parents showed up at the gate, asking if I'd let the family in, said they wanted to reconnect. Serena was behind them, crying, begging. They even brought flowers. But what happened after that? What I said? And what they did next? It shocked everyone. And it changed everything. I'm Adrienne Cole. And this is the story of how the house they said I'd never deserve became the place where they all came crawling back. Before I share my story, I'd love to know you're here with me. Just say "listening" in the comments, or tell me where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this story can reach. And if you've ever been underestimated by your own family, hit that subscribe button. This story is for you. Thank you. And now, let me tell you everything. They always said my sister Serena was the star, and I guess, on paper she was. Ivy League degree, husband with a private surgical practice, beach house in Cape Cod, designer wardrobe, holiday photos in Tuscany. You know the type. Perfectly filtered life, captioned with things like "gratitude is a lifestyle," while the rest of us grind our teeth behind cracked phone screens. I was never the star. I was the sturdy one, the reliable one, the daughter who didn't need saving, because apparently, she wasn't worth the spotlight. I went to a state college, majored in finance, skipped the parties, and poured myself into real estate. I started a small property management firm by 26. Built it slowly, carefully, no loans, no gifts, no applause. And yet, every family gathering felt like a bad rerun. "Adrienne, still selling houses?" Uncle Pete would chuckle with a mouthful of prime rib. "You're good with leases and stuff, right?" And I'd smile, small, controlled, while my sister held court over charcuterie, talking about yoga retreats and soul-aligned branding. Mom and Dad, Charles and Darlene, never meant to be cruel. They just assumed Serena was the legacy. I was the footnote. I used to think I was imagining it, until that Christmas when I was 14. Grandma Cole had passed the year before, and her sapphire heirloom ring was supposed to go to me. She'd promised it during one of our afternoons baking bread, her papery hand curled over mine. But when Dad pulled out the ring box, he turned to Serena and said, "You've earned this, sweetheart. Harvard girls wear sapphire well." I didn't cry. I just excused myself and went outside, stood in the snow in my socks until I couldn't feel my toes. That's how I've handled most things since. Quiet, cold, unnoticed. Only Aunt Vicky ever saw through the act. She'd bring me books on business, slip me a check when I launched my firm, and once whispered during a family barbecue, "You're not loud, Adrienne, but you're the one who listens. That's why you'll outlast them." I never believed her. Not really. Not until the day Serena posted that photo. I was sitting in my old Toyota, parked outside one of my fixer-uppers, a 3-bedroom with plumbing issues and a leaky roof, fielding a call from a picky buyer who couldn't decide between laminate or hardwood. Sweat trickled down my back. The AC had been busted for months. I hung up and mindlessly opened Instagram. There she was. Serena, barefoot in a silk robe, standing on the patio of some sea-facing villa, arms stretched like she'd summoned the waves herself. The caption read, Manifesting the retreat dream, 2024 is my year. I stared at that screen for a long time, not angry, not jealous, just awake. Something clicked. Not the kind of snap that makes you spiral, but the kind that rearranges your bones. See, what no one knew was that I helped her get that place. Years ago, when she and her husband were scouting properties, she'd called me in a panic, not knowing how to navigate zoning permits. I'd walked her through it, quietly, thoroughly. She'd thanked me, then told the family that her husband's real estate guy handled it all. I didn't say a word, but that house, that dream she claimed, it was my blueprint, my scaffolding, my silent work. And for the first time, I didn't want to let it go. For 38 years, I never asked for justice. I never needed to win. But that house by the sea, if it ever slipped through her fingers and landed in mine, I wouldn't hand it back. Not this time. I was 10 minutes late. Just 10. But by the time I stepped into the private dining room at Lennox and Company, my heels clicking against the polished marble, it felt like I'd missed a year. The room went quiet. Not fully, but in that half-second hush that cuts sharper than silence. Faces turned, forks paused, and every gaze held the same expression. Polite curiosity tinged with something sour. The kind of look people give when they've already heard something about you, and it wasn't good. I smiled, said a quick hello, and made my way to the empty seat near Aunt Vicky. She patted my hand under the table, whispering, "Breathe. They're just nosy, not dangerous." I tried to believe her. Dad's 70th birthday was supposed to be a simple affair. Lavish, sure. Everything Charles Cole touched was, but simple in spirit. Family, food, speeches, and, I'd hoped, a night where I could just be a daughter. Not the lesser one, not the landlord, not the disappointment. Serena arrived on time, of course, dazzling in a cream-wrapped dress and gold earrings that probably cost more than my HVAC system. She hugged everyone, posed for photos with our parents, and clinked wine glasses like royalty. But beneath all that sparkle, I noticed it. Tightness in her smile, a barely concealed tremor in her fingers. Something was off. After the entrees were cleared, the lights dimmed slightly. A waiter brought out a towering coconut cake, Dad's favorite. We all applauded as he blew out the candles, arms around Mom's waist. Then Serena stood, raising her glass. I assumed she'd deliver some rehearsed glowing tribute to our father. Instead, she choked on a breath, blinked back tears and said, "I wasn't sure if I should say this, but I can't pretend anymore." A silence fell that was too deliberate, too clean. "I've filed for bankruptcy," she said, voice trembling. "And I never thought I'd be here. Not like this. I asked Adrienne for help. Just something to get me through. But she said no." For a moment, no one breathed. I stared at her, at the delicate gold chain around her neck, at her perfect nails curling around a wine glass. My throat closed. "I get it," she continued. "Maybe I made mistakes. Maybe I deserved to struggle. But I just never thought my own sister would turn her back on me." My mother gasped and covered her mouth, tears already spilling. My father pushed his chair back so hard it screeched against the floor, then stormed toward the bar without a word. I opened my mouth, tried to form something, anything, but I couldn't even process what was happening. I had no idea Serena was in financial trouble. No one had asked me for anything. There was no loan, no plea, nothing. I stood slowly, heart thudding, trying to steady my breath. "That's not true," I said, but my voice was swallowed by whispers rippling around the room. Serena didn't even look at me. She just kept going. She said I should learn from the consequences. Maybe I should. but that kind of cruelty, it broke me. Aunt Vicky's hand tightened around mine, but even she looked stunned. I scanned the room. Darlene sobbed quietly into a napkin. My cousins whispered behind manicured hands. Uncle Pete looked at me like I'd kicked a puppy. Then Pam, second cousin from Mom's side, leaned in close, eyes wide. Serena told us weeks ago you refused to lend her 100 grand. You really said that? My spine straightened. I suddenly understood. This had been orchestrated. Carefully. Serena wasn't just breaking down. She was setting a stage. And the rest of us were props. As if on cue, my phone vibrated in my purse. I glanced down. Texts flooded in. Birthday wishes for Dad. And one from a client. Hey, just heard a rumor you're being sued? Hope everything's okay. My fingers went numb. I looked up at Serena, still playing the wounded bird, arms wrapped around our mother, soaking up sympathy like rain on silk. And I saw it, that flicker behind her eyes, the one that didn't match the tears. Cold, steady, calculating. She wasn't unraveling, she was performing. And I'd just been cast as the villain. I didn't drive straight home. I couldn't. The steering wheel felt slippery in my hands, not from sweat, but from the sheer numbness settling into my bones. I kept replaying Serena's words over and over, her voice cracking just enough, her eyes glistening just right. She had the entire room wrapped around her finger while I stood there like a criminal without a trial. I'd been blindsided, branded, and banished, all within 5 minutes, by my own blood. The road blurred through the windshield as I turned onto my street. The porch light at my modest Craftsman flickered like it always did, blinking like Morse code that said, "You're alone in this." I stepped inside, kicked off my heels, and let the silence swallow me. The phone in my purse vibrated again, but I didn't bother to look. I turned it off completely and tossed it onto the kitchen counter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I opened my laptop. It was automatic. An old reflex to run back to work when the world turned cruel. At least spreadsheets didn't lie. Listings didn't manipulate. Numbers never sobbed into their wine glass and accused you of betrayal. I clicked through a few platforms I monitored regularly. One of them was a luxury property site. Off-market listings, high-end estate exchanges, investment whispers. I didn't expect anything unusual. I just needed to lose myself in square footage and zoning codes. Then I saw it. Mediterranean-style villa, coastal Maine, urgent sale due to debt default. I froze. The thumbnail was familiar. Arched windows, clay tile roof, lemon trees in terracotta pots. I clicked. And there it was. Her villa. The one Serena had posted on Instagram just months ago. The one she talked about incessantly over brunches and family dinners. Her so-called healing sanctuary. "When I open this place," she once said, swirling her mimosa, "I'll host retreats for burned-out women. The family will be our first guests. You'll all be my case study for transformation." It wasn't funny then. It was downright tragic now. I scrolled through the listing. The asking price was nearly $400,000 below market value. I checked the legal documents attached. Foreclosure imminent. The current deed was under a shell company tied to a collapsing investment fund. Serena didn't just lose the house. She'd leveraged it beyond recognition and was now watching it slip into the auction block. My heart pounded. The shame from the birthday dinner hadn't faded, but now it had a twin emotion: clarity. She had played me, lied to the whole family, set me up like a villain. And all the while, this was happening behind the scenes. I needed answers. I picked up the phone and called the one person I trusted with secrets that could burn bridges, Rita Yang. Rita and I had been friends since college. She went into law. I went into real estate. We overlapped often. She answered on the second ring, already chewing gum like she knew something was off. Adrienne, that tone means war. What's going on? Need a quick legal lookup. Urgent. You up for it? Always. I sent her the property link. 5 minutes later, she called back, voice sharper than before. She's out of options. The property is under a fund that's liquidating. Foreclosure clock's ticking. And Serena's name? Not even on the asset anymore. She can't reclaim it. I stared at the screen, then whispered, I want it. A pause. But I don't want anyone to know it's me. Another pause. Rita didn't ask why. She didn't have to. I can create an LLC for you. Something generic. We'll use a third-party agent to place the bid. Your name won't touch the records. Ever. I nodded as if she could see me through the phone. For a moment, I just listened to my own breathing. I wasn't someone who schemed. I didn't play dirty. But this wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. All my life, Serena had lived in the spotlight while I paved her roads in the dark. She built her identity on perception, on being adored. I built mine on concrete. Deals, risk, resilience. And now, her crown jewel, the one dream she clung to, was about to be repossessed. I wasn't going to steal it. I was going to earn it. With silence, with precision, with no one knowing, until it was far too late. It took 13 days. 13 days of paperwork, negotiation, background filings, title transfers, and late-night calls with Rita. But I did it. The villa was mine. Legally, it belonged to an LLC listed under Rita's name, but in every meaningful way, it was my asset, my power, my move on the board. I didn't tell a soul in the family. Instead, I sent out polished invitations for a private project launch, a curated event to unveil my latest healing investment property, focused on retreat wellness and restorative real estate. I chose my words carefully. No bragging. Just enough mystery to tickle the curiosity of even my most judgmental relatives. They all came. Charles showed up in a beige blazer, already tipsy off the hotel bar. Darlene wore her favorite pearl set, an indicator she believed this event might be worth her approval. My cousins drifted in one by one, the same cousins who used to whisper that Adrienne peaked at community college. I welcomed each of them like royalty. Then, 45 minutes late, Serena arrived. She looked radiant, of course, like someone attending the ribbon cutting of her own vision. I watched her scan the valet line, the marble walkway, the arched entry, still unaware. Her heels clicked onto the foyer's tile as she stepped into the main hall. And froze. I saw it happen. Her breath caught. Her pupils darted across the room, tilework, staircase, hanging Moroccan lanterns. She knew this house. She knew every inch of it. Charles chuckled and nudged her elbow. Serena, isn't this that place you always talked about? That ocean villa you said was your dream? Serena blinked. Yes, it looks very similar. But her voice lacked conviction. She wasn't looking at the room anymore. She was looking at me. I let the moment stretch just long enough. Then I clinked my glass and stepped onto the small platform near the French doors, where the ocean glimmered in the distance. Thank you all for coming, I began. This project is personal to me. For years, I worked behind the scenes, building quietly. I didn't make announcements. I didn't ask for applause. I just built. And today, I wanted to share what that silence has grown into. I turned slightly, gesturing to the villa behind me. This home, this sanctuary, is not just a listing. It's not a flip or a favor. It's mine, fully owned. No partners, no loans, no co-signers, no permissions. For the first time, I don't owe anyone an explanation. Silence. Then, slowly, a clap. then another. Soon the whole room filled with applause, soft at first, then swelling. I caught Serena still by the foyer, eyes wide but lips pressed into a faint, practiced smile. She wasn't applauding. Darlene wiped her eyes. I always knew you had something special in you, Adrienne. Charles raised his wine glass. If you need someone to help manage this place, I could spend my summers up here. Lend a hand. Someone, my cousin Mel, rushed up with her phone. Can I get a photo with you, Adrienne? This is incredible. Seriously. CEO vibes. I smiled politely, but inside I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything, too tangled to name. There it was. The affection, the admiration, the warmth they'd withheld for years, all poured out now that I had something shiny they could bask in. And as the flash of Mel's phone lit my face, a voice echoed in my memory. Aunt Vicky, years ago, after Serena got into Harvard. Sweetheart, your family doesn't hate you, they just love themselves more. That night, I didn't celebrate. I stayed after everyone left, barefoot in the grand room, a glass of still water in hand. I looked around the home that once belonged to Serena's fantasy. Now it was mine. And I hadn't even raised my voice. It started quietly, like the distant hum of a storm you're not sure is real. One client canceled, then two more, all within the same week. At first, I thought maybe it was the market. Maybe I'd missed something. But the excuses didn't make sense. One said she'd heard my company had passed legal issues. Another claimed there was talk of an investigation. A third just ghosted entirely, leaving behind only an email with a vague, "We've decided to go in a different direction." I tried not to panic, but the pit in my stomach kept growing. I called Rita. "Do you think someone's coming after you?" she asked, not even sugarcoating it. "I don't know," I whispered. "But it feels personal." That night, Rita dove into some of the real estate forums, places where insiders gossiped under usernames, sometimes anonymously, sometimes behind burner profiles. And that's when she found it. 3 threads, each one posted by a different new account, but the writing felt eerily familiar, too polished, too targeted. Accusations that I had altered escrow agreements, manipulated deposit schedules, or misrepresented properties to vulnerable buyers. One post even mentioned a high-profile villa currently under review for ownership inconsistencies. I read it 3 times, my hands growing cold. "It's her, isn't it?" I said to Rita. I didn't want to jump to it, she replied, but the phrasing, the references, they sound like Serena. I didn't respond. I was too busy trying not to let the truth swallow me. 2 days later, Rita traced one of the anonymous posts to an IP address linked to a now-defunct email account, an account that used to belong to Serena's ex-husband, an account she had access to during their marriage, and, based on court filings, still used from time to time for personal business transitions. "She's smarter than we thought," Rita said, "and more desperate." That evening, I received a message from a former client. She had been difficult, but we'd closed her deal successfully, and she'd even referred me to someone else afterward. But now she was cold. I was contacted by someone named SC, who said I should consider legal action against you, that you pocketed part of my deposit back in 2021. She says she has proof. My hands trembled as I typed out my reply. That never happened, you know that. But I didn't hit send. What was the point? She'd already been poisoned. I sat there in silence, staring at Serena's initials. At the next family brunch, Serena showed up in soft linen and a barely there smile. She barely spoke, just nodded gently when spoken to. The kind of behavior that invited sympathy. Darlene leaned toward me and said, in that maternal tone that always made me feel 6 years old, "Your sister's been so low since she lost the villa. But you know what helps a soul heal? Forgiveness. She's still your sister, Adrienne. I bit my tongue so hard it ached. Serena was playing the long game. She wasn't just trying to recover. She was reinventing herself as the wronged party, the misunderstood soul, the gracious one enduring in silence. Meanwhile, in the shadows, she was planting landmines under every professional connection I had. And I could feel it. My world shifting. Every move I made now had to be deliberate, every word calculated. Because this wasn't about houses or contracts anymore. This was war. And the battlefield was my name. It unraveled faster than I could keep up. One of my largest strategic clients, a wellness retreat chain expanding into New England, dropped out of our deal. No warning. Just a curt email citing unresolved concerns regarding the company's legal stability. The project was worth nearly 6 figures. I sat frozen at my desk, rereading the message until the words blurred into fog. Then the article dropped. A small niche real estate publication published a piece titled, "Luxury Consultant Accused of Using Shell Companies to Mask Personal Acquisitions." It named no names, but the details were razor-sharp. A Mediterranean-style villa on the Maine coast, a quiet purchase via LLC, speculations of insider manipulation. It was me. Every word of it. I tried calling the editor. No response. I emailed a denial. Nothing. The story gained slow traction. Not viral, not explosive, but enough to plant seeds of doubt in my partners, my investors, my clients. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I received a letter from an ex-employee, a junior assistant who'd left over a year ago. He claimed he'd been pressured to backdate a deposit agreement. There was no hard proof, but he'd copied the message to a legal firm and 2 clients I was still in negotiation with. I felt the ground slipping beneath me. Then came the email from my bank. My company account was temporarily frozen, pending internal review, triggered by a flagged anomaly in our insurance-backed credit system. They cited concerns over third-party entanglements and ownership ambiguity of recent acquisitions. I couldn't even pay my accountant. I called Rita. Her voice, usually calm and surgical, cracked slightly as she spoke. I dug into the IPs that tried accessing your legacy admin portal. They're masked by VPNs, but several trace back to Massachusetts, the same region Serena's ex-husband's tech company used to operate from. The patterns, they're deliberate, coordinated. I closed my eyes, every muscle in my neck tight. But we can't prove it yet? I asked. Number not directly. I wanted to scream, not because I didn't see it coming, but because the betrayal was so elegant. Serena hadn't just attacked me with gossip. She'd built an entire stage, lit it, cast the shadows, and waited for me to trip over them. And then, as if the universe wanted to twist the knife just a little deeper, my phone buzzed with a text. Serena, heard you're in a bit of trouble. If you need someone to temporarily hold the company name or help manage until it clears, I'm here. Family looks out for each other. I stared at the screen. My jaw tightened. My chest burned. She was offering to help. The woman who'd lit the match was now offering to hold the hose. My first instinct was to call her out, confront her. But then I stopped. That's what she wanted. Chaos. Emotion. A blow-up that would make me look unstable. And if this war was happening in the shadows, then I needed to learn to move silently too. I didn't reply. I sat in the dark, in my living room, the villa's cold floor beneath my feet. I thought about everything I'd built, everything I'd clawed together with stubbornness and scraped dignity. And I realized this wasn't just about money or contracts. It was about identity. Serena wasn't trying to win. She was trying to erase me. The morning of the crash was calm, almost too calm. Maine's coastline stretching ahead in a ribbon of gray-blue mist and pine. I was on my way to meet a potential partner, someone who might help stabilize the business while I handled the fallout from the false accusations. I hadn't slept the night before. The villa had grown quiet, tense. Even the waves sounded suspicious. Somewhere near Seal Harbor, my brakes failed. There was no warning, just a sudden looseness beneath my foot as I pressed down the pedal, and nothing responded. I pumped harder. Still nothing. The road curved sharply downhill, no shoulder, no space to swerve. My heart jammed into my throat. I gripped the wheel, trying to downshift. The tires screeched. A flock of birds exploded from the trees. Then came the plunge. I remember the sound of glass giving way, steel crunching like paper, the eerie silence as I tumbled downward. Then darkness. Cold, wet, metallic darkness. When I opened my eyes again, it was 3 days later, and a stranger's voice whispered, "She's coming too." I was in a small hospital in Vermont, surrounded by machines I didn't recognize, under a name I barely remembered Rita using once when booking hotel rooms under aliases. Rita had saved me. She'd found me minutes after the crash, rushed me out before the media or police could swarm. She made sure I stayed off the grid. My name wasn't on the hospital records. My location was locked behind her VPN and encrypted drives. Even my phone had been destroyed, just as planned. Or rather, as Serena had planned. Yes, I knew. The crash wasn't random. The brake lines hadn't failed. They'd been tampered with. Rita had already started tracing the service history on my car, and it didn't take long to find something off. An unsigned work order logged at a garage Serena had used before, with just enough plausible deniability to avoid suspicion. The news broke by noon that day. Prominent villa owner presumed dead in coastal car crash. The press ran with it, aided by a few eager social media posts and anonymous sources whispering about my mental health decline. They found my phone case near the rocks, my wallet soaking in salt water, part of my license plate embedded in a tree trunk. No body, no blood, just the story they wanted. While I lay bandaged and bruised in a room that smelled like antiseptic and pine, my family descended like crows. Charles, Darlene, and, of course, Serena moved into my villa within a week. Serena called it Adrienne's legacy, posing in photos beside the arched windows, her voice catching on the word healing. Darlene planted tulips in the front garden. Charles brought up his fishing gear and claimed the den. Then came the interviews. Serena announced the launch of a new initiative, the Adrienne Center for Resilience and Healing, a press release, an emotionally staged photo beside a framed picture of me, a website in soft lilac tones. Serena even changed the furniture, replacing the warm beiges I'd chosen with her signature icy blues and chrome. She invited wellness bloggers, hosted brunches. The worst part? It worked. They believed her. She was charming, tragic, generous, and she didn't waste time. She hired a lawyer and began the process of claiming the property. No will, no children. She said I had no plan. The villa, she argued, should pass to the family. To her. That's when I stopped watching the headlines and started writing my return. Serena's latest performance was titled A Memorial Dinner Honoring Adrienne. There were candles, classical string music, guests in black cocktail attire. Industry journalists hovered beside waiters holding champagne flutes. Darlene wept softly, clutching a blown-up photo of me in front of the villa. Charles gave a speech about overcoming doubt to honor family. Then Serena stepped up to the mic. She wore ivory, tasteful, not bridal. Her voice trembled as she spoke of my vision. The guests murmured their sympathies, nodded solemnly. When she unveiled the sign, the Adrienne Center for Resilience and Healing, there was a round of applause. That's when I stepped into the room. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The sound of my cane tapping against the tile echoed like a gunshot. The room turned. Gasps. One woman dropped her glass, the shatter slicing through the silence. Serena stood frozen, her mouth parting slightly before the mic slipped from her fingers. "Don't cry just yet," I said evenly. "I'm not dead." The room split wide open. Darlene fainted. Charles stumbled backward into a chair. I saw faces turn pale, confused, mortified. Serena took one shaky step toward me, then stopped, the weight of every lie crashing into her spine. "I didn't come for the show," I said, looking directly at her. "I came to tear it down." Rita stepped forward, calm and composed, and handed me a binder. I opened it and read aloud. A conversation between Serena Cole and Thomas Gilroy, mechanic, dated 2 days before the accident. Text message reads, "Make sure the brake adjustment doesn't leave a trace." Another page. IP activity logs from a VPN previously linked to Serena's ex-husband's credentials, used to post defamatory content about Adrienne Cole's business integrity. Another. An audio file in which Serena discusses legal strategies to claim ownership of the villa after 60 days of non-appearance by me, presumed deceased. I paused. Let it sink in. This villa was never part of a public trust. It belongs to me. All unauthorized use, occupancy, or fraudulent activity from this moment forward will be documented and prosecuted. I turned to the room. "This is your last night here without a subpoena." A hush. Then the shuffle of feet as relatives, those same cousins who mocked me over cheap wine, slipped quietly toward the exit. Rita spoke into the mic. "You have 20 minutes to vacate the premises. Our legal counsel is waiting outside." And then it happened. Serena, stripped of all performance, collapsed to her knees. "You took everything," she sobbed. "Everything was supposed to be mine. You stole my dream." I looked at her, not with rage, but something colder. "You destroyed your own dream the moment you tried to step on mine." She looked away. I didn't, because I was no longer fighting for approval. I was reclaiming my space, with truth, not vengeance. And sometimes, the sharpest sound in a room full of noise is silence. I didn't walk into the courthouse with vengeance in my chest. I walked in with clarity. The kind that comes after fire has burned everything hollow, and all that's left is bone. I filed a civil suit against Serena for financial damages, defamation, and deliberate interference with my business. Not because I wanted to watch her crumble, but because the truth had to be documented. Officially, legally, permanently. Rita had done her homework. We submitted video footage from a garage security cam. Serena meeting with the mechanic who had tampered with my brakes. His face, his car, their handshake. We had the texts too. Her message telling him to adjust without leaving a trace. It wasn't just betrayal, it was orchestration. We also filed a separate complaint against her for false legal attacks and character assassination, including her attempt to rewrite ownership of my villa while I was still in recovery. The lawyers said it was one of the cleanest premeditation cases they'd seen. 2 days after our filing, Serena's attorney dropped her. The official statement read, "We cannot continue representing a client whose actions are in direct violation of our firm's ethical standards." It was the first time Serena had been abandoned in public. But I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. Instead, I withdrew the criminal charges. Yes, she had tried to silence me. Yes, she had nearly killed me. But dragging her through a criminal trial would have turned me into the thing I had fought so hard not to become. I told the court I would pursue only civil reparations, just enough to reclaim what was lost. I didn't survive fire just to become fire, I told the judge. She wasn't going to prison, but she was barred from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of the villa. That night, I wrote a letter, not to her, not to my family, but to everyone. I posted it online, a single photo of the villa in twilight, captioned with these words: "Some places begin as a home, become a battlefield, and, if you're strong enough, can end as a stage. You don't need applause to tell your story. You just need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. This is mine." Within a day, it was reposted across real estate and lifestyle forums. Women, especially women in their 40s and 50s, commented, "This is my story too." Some said it gave them courage to file for divorce, to start over, to reclaim their spaces from people who told them they weren't enough. It went viral not because it was dramatic, but because it was true. News outlets picked it up. "Survivor of family betrayal turns abandoned villa into healing center," one headline read. But I declined every major interview. Instead, I accepted an invite from a small, independent podcast for women starting second lives. When they asked why I never gave interviews before, I said simply, "I don't live to prove anything anymore. I live to live." Weeks later, a letter came in the mail, from Charles and Darlene. It was handwritten, trembling in tone. "We backed the wrong daughter," they wrote, "and we sacrificed the one who actually needed us." I folded the letter and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. I didn't write back. Not because I hated them, but because peace, for me, meant silence. Fall crept in with gold-tipped trees and morning fog curling over the water like breath. One morning, I woke up early in the villa, my villa, and stepped barefoot onto the porch, cradling a mug of black coffee. The house was quiet. No footsteps from Darlene's heels, no clink of Charles's glass tumblers, no forced laughter from Serena. Just me. Just the light. Just the scent of cedar and lake air. I remembered once, years ago, Serena had called this place a healing paradise. Back then, I thought she meant it as a marketing slogan. Now, sitting here with a faint scar on my wrist and a new calm in my chest, I realized she had accidentally spoken a truth she never lived. Later that day, a group of women arrived for the first healing retreat. They were middle-aged, divorced, grieving, starting over. They stood at the edge of the property in awe, taking in the clean lines, the quiet energy. One woman approached me. "Are you the owner?" she asked. I read a story once, about a woman who bought a dream back from the dead. I smiled, slow and real. "I'm just someone who learned how to protect what matters." Rita visited that same week, hand in hand with her new boyfriend. He was kind, shy. They asked if they could host their engagement celebration here. Something small, under the lights in the back garden. I said yes without hesitation. That night, as fairy lights glowed above the stone path and real laughter filled the air, I sat behind the old stone columns and watched them dance. Rita's face was full of joy I'd never seen before. My eyes watered, not from envy, but because, for once, the villa held joy that wasn't pretending. A week later, a letter arrived. Aunt Vicky, now living in Arizona, had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her words were soft, handwritten in violet ink. "You were always the one they underestimated. But look at you now. You turned a nightmare into a refuge. You won, Adrienne. But remember, don't stop learning how to live." I folded the letter and set it beside an old photograph of us at the lake, back when I still thought family was everything. Then I stepped outside, barefoot again, into the morning sun. The villa no longer felt like something I had to defend. It simply felt like mine. And for the first time in a long, long time, that was enough. Sometimes we rebuild not from what we were given, but from what we were denied. And in that quiet effort, we discover something deeper than revenge or validation. We find peace. True strength isn't loud. It's the ability to walk forward when no one claps, and to live fully without needing applause. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment, subscribe, and stay with me for more. Thank you for listening.